Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Admittedly, I am a bit surprised by the reaction that many of you are having to my reaction of this story. The Saints, to catch you up, effectively, the Saints have not hired a coach yet, and it seems like they're still going to continue conversations after the Super Bowl. And the reaction from some has been, but Matt, they can't hire a coach until after the Super Bowl. Right. They can't formally hire a coach until after the Super Bowl. It is, however, very common practice to have a deal in place with coaches that you intend to hire before their season ends. I will point your attention to 1 year ago with the New Orleans Saints. On February the 2nd, which was the Friday of the Senior Bowl. There was Cat Terrell, ESPN.com, February 2nd, 2024. Saints plan to hire 49ers Clint Kubiak as OC, sources say. There it is right there. February 2nd. Oh, by the way, Kubiak was coaching the Niners in the Super Bowl. Schefter reported it. So it's very common that happens. I had somebody on Twitter say, well, they can't because you get hit with tampering and you can lose a draft pick like what happened with the Eagles and Cardinals last year. No. Pay attention. A year ago, Arizona and Philly swapped third-round picks because the Cardinals tampered. What they did was they had a phone call with Jonathan Gannon during the no-contact period. That violated the NFL's anti-tampering policy, having that contact during the no-contact period. There is a period in which teams can go talk to coaches even who are still coaching. That's why the Saints flew to Philadelphia on Monday and talked to Kellen Moore. There's a period where you can speak to a coach who is still coaching. It's how this process has to go. The Cardinals a year ago had a phone call with Gannon during an impermissible time. Their GM apologized for it, acknowledged mistakes. The two teams, he called the Bidwells, apologized. The two teams made an agreement, and they essentially just swapped picks in the third round. There is nothing to prohibit the Saints during their conversations with Kellen Moore to offer him the job. Nothing. He cannot formally accept and become the Saints coach until after the season's over, which would be after the Super Bowl a week from Sunday. But Schefter can still report it, or whoever those people are that would report it. There's nothing this is commonplace. So today, all that's set up to tell you what happened today. Diana Rossini, very reputable, at the Senior Bowl, and on her podcast, reported that none of the Saints candidates, as of now, have been told they're out of the running, which would suggest there isn't a final answer. Rossini also reported that the scuttlebutt, her word, is that Kellen Moore may not want the job, quote, due to the fact that the Saints don't have a quarterback in place. She went on to say later that Kellen Moore, however, may have come around to the job anyway. So that was Diana Rossini on her podcast. A few hours later on Friday, Tom Pelissero reports that the New Orleans Saints still have not made a decision on who they're going to hire, and that they plan to speak to Kellen Moore again after the Super Bowl. I mean, all of that is to suggest they haven't made their choice. They could be leaning toward Kellen Moore, and Kellen Moore may still be the guy. As a matter of fact, if you made me guess today, of course I think he's the guy, because if he wasn't, and they were sold on Rizzi or Kafka, they could have hired him already. The one guy they're waiting on is him. So, okay. But the problem I have is the indecision. And you could say to me, well, Matt, it's a big decision that they're making here. Take your time, do it right. Okay. What more do you need? If there's no new candidates, and that's the Saints who have said that. They're not interviewing anybody else. They've got their list. Okay. You had a virtual call, and you flew up to Philly and had a 9-hour face-to-face into the wee hours of Tuesday morning with Kellen Moore. What more are you going to ask him? I can't imagine. Now, I never hired an NFL head coach, but I have hired people before, and I fired people before. I cannot imagine. Again, I'm not hiring people paying them millions of dollars to be a coach in the NFL, but I cannot imagine what else you could possibly ask someone after a 9-hour interview. That is stunning to me. And this reeks of indecision. I mean, damn it. Make your decision, be convicted about it, and go. I would rather the Saints have decided after that 9-hour interview that they were bullish on Kellen Moore. This is our guy. You have the silent deal done. You leak it to Schefter, who says, sources say they're leaning toward hiring Kellen Moore. And then, boom, it's done after the Super Bowl. Formally. What I don't like is after that, Tuesday, here you are 72 hours later, and reports are coming out that maybe he don't want you, but might be coming around on it a little bit. But then the Saints still want to talk to him, but it could be someone else, and they haven't told anybody they're out of the running. Like, all of that suggests a bit of a circus around this thing. And it's not to say you won't get it right or you can't end up getting it right or he won't work or any of that stuff. It just shows a lack of organization. It shows, I mean, go back to what Mickey Loomis said when this job came open. And I know a lot of people have parodied him for it and spoofed him for it when he said, well, it's one of 32 jobs. Yeah, it is. Isn't that why people should be leaping at the opportunity? But when Joe Brady tells you no, and Cliff Kingsbury decides to stay in Washington instead of taking your job, and Kellen Moore may not think it's the right situation, like, you continue to have coordinators tell you they're not bullish on your job. Otherwise, they'd all be lining up begging to take it. Instead, you got guys that you were interested in talking to saying, we're not interested in talking. It's just, it feels like, and again, this very well may and probably will end with them hiring Kellen Moore after the Super Bowl. But it feels very much and looks very much externally like an organization that can't make a decision, especially because the people they thought they were going to hire have told them no. With Aaron Glenn going to the Jets, Joe Brady deciding to stay in Buffalo, you don't get an interview with Kingsbury, he's staying put. So you have a pared down list of guys that were down your initial list, and now you got to decide, and they can't make a decision. That's not a great feeling from a leadership standpoint. I feel like that's where the Saints are right now. They'll just sit and keep waiting. Like, how do so many of you don't understand this? Like, how this works? I mean, I'm not trying to point fingers, but I'm genuinely surprised by the amount of people pushing back, like, well, they can't hire him until after the Super Bowl. Right. Formally, but I just gave you an example a year ago with this organization of doing this exact thing with a coach that was coaching the Super Bowl. You have the deal in place, you leak it to Schefter, and then they're formally announced after the Super Bowl because they don't have their answer yet. And that's a problem. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.